Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we have something a little different. We're not digging through a stack of articles. We're basically holding the architectural plans for, well, the entire history of human cuisine. Our sources are all rooted in the 108, which is this globally curated list of the most essential recipes on Earth.
It's a map, really, a map of what we eat, where we live, and how we've survived.
And it's not a list of, Michelin star creations.
Not at all. This is the universal canon. We're talking about the primal stuff, everything from the ancient structure of bread and stew, all the way to celebration foods like cheesecake and biryani.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The mission today isn't to just go through 108 recipes. It's to find the core wisdom, right? The stuff that transcends any single dish.
Exactly. What the list really reveals are these three universal human needs: survival, comfort, and communion.
And what defines the food that actually lasts for centuries?
Well, it's not complexity, it's mastery of these elemental concepts. If you boil it all down, you find this amazing tension between two ideas.
Which are
Deep patience, what you need for dough or a broth, versus this idea of immediate, intense violence, like a searing hot work. And those two poles, they basically define everything we cook.
that contrast, patience versus violence. That's so compelling. It's as much about your mindset as it is the temperature of the stove. Let's start with what you call the architecture of survival, the foundational trinity: bread, rice, and soup.
Bread is probably the most profound place to start. The sources point out that fermented bread is literally older than writing.
Wow.
Its existence is proof of agriculture, of community.
And it's so baked into our language. I mean, we still say breaking bread.
Exactly. It's a synonym for communion, for trust. And if you connect that to the cooking, good bread tastes like patience. The recipe seems so simple: flour, water, salt, yeast.
Right, just four things.
But the real ingredient is time, that fermentation,
Yeah.
an investment. If you rush the rise, you get that bland, dense brick we've all made. The philosophy is that the cook works for the yeast, not the other way around.
Okay, I love that. Now let's talk rice, the staple for half the planet. I think most of us, myself included, struggle with gummy, sticky rice. What are the absolute non-negotiable rules for getting it right?
Okay, rule one is chemistry. You have to wash the rice until the water runs mostly clear.
I always thought I was just wasting time doing that.
No, you're controlling the starch. That cloudy runoff isn't dirt, it's excess surface starch. If you leave it on, it dissolves and acts like glue. You are literally washing away the potential for stickiness.
Got it. Okay, so that's rule one. What's rule two?
Rule two happens during the cooking. You must never, and I mean never, lift the lid.
Not even for a peek.
Not even for a second. The steam trapped in there is doing all the critical work. It's maintaining constant pressure and temperature. The moment you lift that lid, the pressure drops and you get unevenly cooked grains. The lid stays on, period.
So every time I've peeked, I've broken the spell. Okay, That's clear. So finally, soup, the ultimate time traveler.
What's amazing is the origin of the word soup comes from sop, which was the chunk of stale bread you dip in broth. So the bread actually came first. The liquid was just a way to make old bread edible again.
That's incredible. And this is where that concept of time really comes back in with the aromatic foundation, the mirepoix or sofrito.
It is the absolute cornerstone, that mix of onion, carrot, celery. That's where the flavor is born. And you have to cook those aromatics slowly over medium-low heat for 15 minutes at least.
15. I usually just go for 5 until the onions look soft.
And that's the mistake. You're not just softening them, you're converting their whole flavor profile. Raw onions have these sharp sulfur compounds. Low, slow heat turns that acid into sweetness. It's caramelization. If you rush it, your broth will taste harsh and watery.
So time is the secret ingredient.
It is. The aphorism here is perfect. Soup can't been rushed, only ruined. Time is the ingredient no store sells.
That's a great segue into our next segment, the high-stakes world of slow transformation versus immediate technique. The 3-hour simmer versus the 30-second flip.
Let's start with the champions of slow cooking. Stews and braising. For something like a beef stew, the method is way more important than the specific ingredients. And it all starts with browning the meat.
Ugh, this part. I hate standing there doing it in batches. There's no shortcut, is there?
Unfortunately, no. This is where that patience lesson kicks right back in. You have to pat the meat dry, season it aggressively, and brown it in batches.
Why is that so important? Why not just throw it all in?
Because if you crowd the pot, the temperature plummets. The meat releases its moisture, and you're not browning anymore. You're steaming. Wet meat steams, dry meat browns.
And that brown crust. What is that, chemically?
That's the Maillard reaction. It's a chemical process that creates hundreds of new flavor compounds. And that stuff stuck to the bottom of the pot, the fond. That's flavor gold. You scrape that up, and that becomes the backbone of your stew.
So no crust, no depth.
No depth at all. The pot roast teaches that tenderness cannot be rushed. You need those 2 or 3 hours for the collagen to break down into gelatin.
This also applies to things like lasagna, right? Foods that take hours of work.
Absolutely. They take huge amounts of labor, and they have one final crucial rule. They have to rest for 15 to 20 minutes after baking.
Which is the hardest part.
It's torture. But if you cut it right away, the sauces are still boiling, the fat is molten, and the whole thing just collapses into a puddle. The physics are simple. The lasagna needs to set.
Okay, now let's flip the scripts. Let's talk about that immediate culinary violence, where time is measured in seconds.
We move to the egg. The fried egg is probably the fastest complete meal on the whole list. Shell to plate in 3 minutes.
If you're paying attention.
Exactly. The lesson here is total focus. The aphorism says it all. The egg forgives nothing. Look away for 30 seconds, and it becomes someone else's breakfast.
So true. Okay, what about bacon? What's the one rule that separates perfect bacon from a greasy mess?
The only rule that really matters is this. Start the bacon in a cold pan.
Really? A cold pan?
A cold pan. It prevents thermal shock. If you throw bacon into a hot pan, the protein seizes up, the edges curl, and the fat doesn't render evenly. By starting cold, the pan and the bacon heat up together. The fat gently melts out, and you get those perfect, flat, crispy strips.
That is a genuine game changer. It goes against almost every other rule of pan frying.
It does. And that brings us to the wok. This demands the most heat and the most speed.
The sources call the required heat slightly scary.
It has to be. That's the only way to get woke. Hey, the breath of the wok. That smoky infused flavor only happens when the heat is high enough to instantly vaporize moisture. But that speed requires total preparedness. Your mise en place, having everything chopped and ready, isn't optional. It's mandatory.
You have to be ready before the fire is even lit.
The wok waits for no one. If you stop to chop an onion mid-stir fry, you've already ruined it.
I feel like half this wisdom isn't even about cooking. It's about managing my own impatience.
Okay, let's wrap this up by looking at how specific cultures use these basic forms to create global icons. We can start with the sandwich. The source calls it food for people who are doing something else. Utility over luxury. But there's some hidden engineering in there.
I need to know this engineering detail. I have thought soggy bread my entire life.
It's all about the moisture barrier. You have to spread your condiment mayo, butter, whatever, on both interior slices of the bread.
Both.
Both. It creates this fat-based seal that basically waterproofs the bread from the fillings. It's structural integrity.
That's brilliant. Okay, the king of comfort, grilled cheese.
It's deceptively simple, and it brings us right back to patience. Low heat and patience, this is the only secret. The cheese has to melt before the bread burns. High heat gets you burnt bread and a cold, solid block of cheese. A total failure.
Right. Moving to the Mediterranean now, hummus and baba ganoush. Both dips, but they have totally different techniques.
They're perfect foils. For hummus, the goal is to be impossibly smooth. The source says, the difference between good hummus and great hummus is 2 more minutes in the machine. You have to really let it go until it's silky.
And baba ganoush, I've had so many bad gummy versions.
The non-negotiable step is smoke. You have to char the eggplant directly over a flame until the skin is black and the inside is collapsing. Without char, it's just mashed eggplant.
Okay, but what about the texture?
This is critical. You have to match it with a fork. The source is very clear. Do not use a food processor. It will make the eggplant gummy. The blades release too much starch and ruin the texture.
That explains so much. Okay, Latin thread, tacos and burritos. What's the wisdom here?
It all comes back to the foundation, just like bread. It's about the tortilla. A bad tortilla ruins even perfect meat. A fresh tortilla elevates everything. The vessel is half the dish.
And the burrito. There's a lesson in there about greed, right?
There is. The key error is overfilling. The aphorism is perfect. Do not overfill the burrito. The greed that adds more filling is the same greed that causes bursting. It's about structural integrity.
We have to touch on the African and Asian rivalries. Let's start with jollof rice. What's the culinary secret there?
It's twofold. First, you have to fry the tomato base until the oil floats. That means you've cooked out all the raw, metallic acidity from the tomatoes. Second, the most prized part is the smoky, crunchy bottom layer you get by cranking the heat at the very end. They call it party jollof. It's completely intentional.
And finally, pad thai, a masterclass in balance.
The ultimate expression of it. Sweet, sour, salty, heat, and umami. And the key technique is all about the noodles. They have to be soaked, not cooked, before they go in the wok.
Why is that?
Because they must enter the wok with give left in them. The fire finishes what the water began. If you boil them first, they're already waterlogged. They hit that high heat and just break apart into mush.
You know, what really stands out across all 108 of these is that mastering cooking isn't about memorizing recipes. It's about understanding these core principles: time, heat, fat, balance.
That is the core takeaway. And so many of these winning techniques use the power of cold as a tool. We talked about starting bacon in a cold pan. But think about baklava. You pour cold syrup over the hot pastry to get that perfect shatter. Or an apple pie crust, which needs cold butter, cold water, cold hands. You're using temperature contrast to create texture.
So, what does this map of the universal kitchen ultimately mean for someone listening, maybe just starting out?
Well, the source notes that the number 108 is considered sacred in many cultures. It represents wholeness. So this list isn't a curriculum you have to complete. It's a territory to explore. It's a language.
The language. I like that.
Once you learn the grammar, the rules of time, heat, texture, you can start to improvise. The perfect bread, the seamless hummus, the burrito that doesn't explode, they're all waiting for you. The only thing left to do is begin.